This is the Wirebug. It's one of several gameplay additions in Monster Hunter Rise, and is arguably the centerpiece of them all. In Rise, you always have two Wirebugs on hand, which can be used to sling across the ground or into the air, use special attacks known as Silkbind attacks, and even do what was impossible for most online Smash 4 players. Initially, it might look like the Wirebug was built off the backbone of Monster Hunter World's improved mobility options and its open-ended environments, and on paper, seems like it should just about break any semblance of challenge in Monster Hunter Rise. I mean, Monster Hunter is supposed to be about carefully reading and reacting to monster behavior and attacks. Surely this is just another new addition that further defangs the series without giving anything back in return, right?
This everyone's a winner stuff is a bunch of bullshit. If you suck, you should lose.
While Rise is generally easier than most vanilla releases of past Monster Hunter games, its more lenient moments aren't really a direct result of the Wirebug. In fact, the Wirebug has, in some ways, been a part of Monster Hunter for 6 years now.
Huh?!
You see, at the center of the Wirebug is a certain Yasunori Ichinose, one of the many different people involved with the development of Monster Hunter. Ichinose's position in the series is an interesting one, serving as the director of each of the franchise's portable entries, as well as Monster Hunter Rise itself. In essence, he's at the helm of what some have come to recognize as Monster Hunter's very own B-Team, which have been responsible for some of the series' best-selling entries. At least before Monster Hunter World released. There's something a little more interesting about this portable team's contributions to Monster Hunter, and it's where the groundwork for the Wirebug really started. A little game known as Monster Hunter Generations. Intended to serve as an anniversary game before the huge leap that Monster Hunter World would bring, Generations was the most radically different game the franchise had seen yet. This was mainly due to not adding a new weapon to the series, but instead adding hunting styles and hunter arts. This was an inclusion born not only out of time constraints, but also from seeing the different play styles that players had already been creating with existing weapons and skills. This led to Generations having customizable play styles, potent super moves, the ability to play as felines for the very first time, and some of the most outlandish monster designs in the series. Though it wasn't as obvious on release, Generations was an important step forward for Monster Hunter. On the one hand, it would be the vehicle for which some of Monster Hunter World's features were tested out in some form, such as daily bounties and infinite pickaxes. On the other hand, it was also the first time in the series that anyone had tried to explore the idea of deepening player expression outside of just switching out your weapons. In Generations, it was now about what hunting style you used and what hunter arts you brought to create your very own playstyle that was uniquely yours. Unfortunately, these ideas were ultimately held back by a game that was, first and foremost, a commemorative anniversary type of title. With so many returning monsters not designed or updated around these new gameplay systems, all it took was the right combinations of styles and arts to bend most of the game's difficulty backwards. It's not like this made for a terrible game, mind you, but with only about 10% of the monsters designed with these new gameplay systems in mind, it made for a very imbalanced experience. Monster Hunter World, being a product of the mainline team and not the portable team, never made it a priority to focus on that idea of deepening player expression. A few ideas from Generations were lifted over into World, sure, but the bulk of Generations additions were trapped to that one single game. In a way, it's almost kinda like how the series still hasn't seen the return of underwater swimming after 3U. For a while, it felt like that's where ideas like hunting styles and hunter arts would begin and also end. Just nothing more than an interesting, one-off experiment. And this is the reason why the Wirebug is so special in Monster Hunter Rise. In essence, the Wirebug is what happens when Generations' entire concept of deepening player expression is woven more tightly into the core gameplay of Monster Hunter. While most of World's new features were built around how you interacted with the world around you, the Wirebug is something built right into your moveset. Wirebugs can be used to sling yourself across the ground or into the air, letting you reposition yourself in a pinch. While it's great for just moving around Rise's much larger maps, it can also be used as a defensive option during hunts, pulling you just out of harm's way or above a sweeping attack. Rise then takes things one step further by letting you use wirebugs to essentially perform a wire fall after being knocked down, giving you a quick escape from a follow-up attack. I know it sounds like letting players freely recover from attacks is too strong of a new defensive option in the series, but it's at least balanced out by 3 other quirks of the wirebug that keep it from undermining the hunting experience entirely. While you can freely use the wirebug to zip around and wirefall away from monsters, you are not invincible during wirebug movement. Improper use of the wirebug is just like any other mistimed attack or item use in Monster Hunter.
Before you leap, you must look.
This is because every single monster in Rise is designed and redesigned with the wirebug in mind, with some monsters nudging but never outright forcing you to use your wirebugs defensively. In fact, some monsters will even outright punish you for thoughtless wirebug use. What really ties this all together is a cooldown gauge that triggers with each use of your wirebugs. The cooldown time on wirebug use is a fairly reasonable balancing mechanism, with shorter recharge times for wirebug movement and longer recharge times for the offensive Silkbind attacks. While generally weaker than the Hunter arts and Generations, Silkbind attacks make up for it by giving the player even more options in how to use their weapon, whether it's with high-risk attacks or with versatile maneuvers that complement a weapon's playstyle in some other way. With both your most offensive and defensive maneuvers now tethered to the exact same resource, there's a fair bit of weight and investment behind each use of your wirebug.
I looked. Before you look, you must think.
The wirebug is integrated so naturally into the core combat of Monster Hunter that it never feels like a heavy detriment to the series' most defining gameplay elements. If anything, it feels more like a natural expansion and evolution of those gameplay elements. Instead of giving players a defined playstyle and a resource to build up for super attacks, the portable team instead just combined the two ideas into the exact same feature. The wirebug is a lot more flexible than just pushing one button to pop a super attack, letting you craft your own playstyle based solely around however you choose to use it.
And that in itself makes for a really dynamic combat encounter. He's awesome.
Whether you use the wirebug for more evasive, defensive maneuvers, save them for those perfectly timed Silkbind attacks, or even whatever the hell this is, the wirebug is essentially a resource designed more heavily around the idea of risk versus reward, which is a lot closer to how older Monster Hunter games tended to balance out their new mechanics. On top of all that, there's also the new switch skill mechanic, which lets you swap out Silkbind attacks or parts of weapons' movesets with alternatives. Though switch skills aren't as dazzling or even as robust as the hunting styles and Generations, they really don't need to be. Switch skills are just another means for players to further create their own unique playstyles, building upon and emphasizing the ways in which the wirebug itself already deepens player expression in Monster Hunter. In true fashion for the series, not every weapon's set of switch skills is perfectly balanced, but the mechanic nonetheless gives players enough room to find their own winning playstyle without overwhelming them with countless options.
Yeah, I'm doing good. It's not a woman.
The wirebug is one of the most interesting parts of Monster Hunter Rise. Not only because the entire game is built around it, but because it represents something that had already been starting to happen as early as Portable Third's release 10 years ago. A divergence in how the series' two development teams have come to define Monster Hunter. Despite their similarities, Monster Hunter World and Monster Hunter Rise mark the first time that there's such a drastic difference in how the series builds upon its core foundation of monster hunting. World's focus was to create a living, breathing world for players to hunt in, and nearly every change it made was to complement the game's more open-ended nature as a result of that. Rise, meanwhile, designs nearly all of its various gameplay systems around different balances and counterbalances, with enough freedom to let the player choose how many of those different systems they even want to engage with. Regardless about how you feel about either of these games, it's pretty clear that these two games both have very different ideas about what makes for an engaging Monster Hunter experience. It's the first time there's been such a clearly defined disparity between the mainline and the portable team's approaches to making these games. These two development teams have always shared and traded ideas in the past, but their visions of Monster Hunter's future feel like they exist independently of one another now. instead of this symbiotic relationship where they actively coexist and feed off each other. Now, I'm not trying to tinfoil my way into saying there's some sort of internal schism happening with the Monster Hunter development teams, but I do think the future of Monster Hunter from here on out is going to be very interesting. There's no doubt that Monster Hunter 6 is being developed right now, but who knows how much of Rise, if anything, will make the jump into the next generation. The way the Wirebug changes just how you approach monsters is huge, but there's no guarantee it's even going to return after Rise. There's a very real chance that these two development teams will continue developing their own ideas of what makes for the ideal evolution of the Monster Hunter formula, and keep taking the series in different, unique directions. That said, I have my doubts that this series will ever get to the point where one team's release will always be seen as the definitive or the fake Monster Hunter experience over the other. Either way, it's always going to be Monster Hunter, but where exactly the series goes next, who could really say? Oh god, this turned into an episode of Game Theory at the end. What the hell happened? What's wrong with me?